What is good, everybody? It is the first show of 2025. We are here talking all things fantasy football, dynasty fantasy football, and today with a specific focus on the prospects. Yeah, I'm excited. I love this time of year. If you are a dynasty fanatic, uh, pretty much this is most people's favorite time of year. Yes, winning a ship is obviously the best, but getting to evaluate the prospects, the NFL draft, trying to figure out who you like, who you don't like, where you would draft them, all the startups, all the trades, like this time of year is where the money is made. So I love this time of year. I'm sure you guys love this time of the year as well. So we will definitely be getting into the prospects, talking about all of these players, who we like, who we don't like. And but first, I want to answer some of your questions. We already got tons of questions that are in here. So I want to try to get to some of these real quick. Alex, if you had 102 but needed a running back, what kind of player would you give up in a package to get the 101? Love your work. So I actually just made a trade for the 101. And I had the 102. So for what it's worth, I traded my 26 first and the 102 in order to get the 101. Now, kind of a little background, my pick next year will probably not be very good. My team is in a spot where it is ready to contend. It just needs one more running back piece. My other one is Bijan, and then that would move J.K. Dobbins to my third running back. So for what it's worth, that's what I just recently did. Now, you said player. So basically, what player would be a rough equivalent of that? I would say I would be willing to give up probably in the highest possible range. Man, I'm struggling with like the players that I would give. Because everyone either sounds like you're giving up too much or too little. Let me look at my rankings here. Like maybe a tight end, like a TJ Hawkinson, Tucker Kraft with it. If I'm looking at wide receivers, maybe like a Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed would be like the high end. Low end, I would love to give up more like a Xavier Worthy, Jameson Williams. Like that's what I would prefer to give. But I'm guessing people are going to want a little bit more. Taylor got offered Bijan and Ayuk for Marvin Harrison Jr., Terry, and a 27 first. Do I make the trade? If I make the trade, my wide receivers will be pretty weak with Ayuk, Tillman, Amari, and Ridley, but my running back room will be elite. You would have Jacobs, Barkley, and Bijan. Yeah, I do worry how weak that would make your wide receiver room. But overall, at this time of year, especially, sorry about that. This time of year, especially, I'm not as worried about making sure all my positions are exactly how I want them. We have months. We've got all the draft, all that kind of stuff. So if you like that trade, which overall I would be willing to make that trade for Bijan. So I think I would make that deal, and then I would figure out how to address my wide receiver. Thomas says, thanks for ensuring that I had a ton of Tyrone Tracy shares. Absolutely, dude. He was so cheap, and he was really, really talented. It was one of the easier ones to kind of pump because, look, all those guys, if they're a day 3 guy, they're a risk. They're a risk. But all those guys can be worth it for the right price. So glad it worked out. Dan Toomey, my guy Dan, great dude. He said, long time no talk. Haven't been keeping up recently. Have you found any of your guys in the class so far? I think it's Kyle and it's Monagai or Monagai. I got to learn how to pronounce his last name correctly from Rutgers for me. Pacheco 2.0. Yeah, he's a little shorter than Pacheco, but yeah, I like the little bit of tape I've seen. I have not done my deep dive on him yet. I've done many of the running backs, but I have not done him yet. But I am excited to like dig into that prospect and a lot of these other guys too. So far, I have not found a guy that I am in love with drastically more than consensus. Other than right now, I would have Quinshad Judkins at the moment running back 2. So that would be really the only like my guy type of thing at the moment. Need to improve my wide receiver room. I have Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and McMillan, and then Scrubs. I have the 103 and 105 through 107 plus a couple seconds. Any trade targets for the picks or other ideas on improving? At 103, you might be able to get Tet McMillan. It all depends on how people view the quarterbacks in this league, but you might be able to get Tet McMillan there. And then even 105, 107, you would be able to get Luther Burden, maybe a Trey Harris, depending on like how all of his pre-draft stuff goes. So there's definitely guys that you could get, but I'm never against looking at who can I potentially get. Can I go trade 103 and get T. Higgins? Can I go trade 105 and get Zay Flowers? Can I do some of those types of things to kind of help improve my room? I have no problem doing that. Jack said, I read the 25 3-round mock article and saw Hunter go at 105, but in the podcast, he went 112. Any reason for such a drastic difference? So we weren't necessarily using the same draft. So the reason for the big difference is my guess is my guy Tristan Cook, who's awesome, very smart guy, does a lot of our Devy work. He is a very big Travis Hunter fan. And if he is truly a receiver at the next level, 105 is a steal. However, I think on the podcast, we are very leery on the thought that he will be a regular wide receiver. I think he's going to play more defensive back with some packages on offense. And that's the thing, is it's going to be tough to trust him week in and week out, because right now he's just going to be more of a gadget player, role player, things like that. Hold on, I apologize. I'm battling a little bit of a cold, and it does not want to go away. All right. Advice on what to do with the 103. Ashton Genty and Tet McMillan are a lock for 1 and 2, and I don't necessarily need a quarterback. Got Tua, Love, and May. So what I would probably do is I don't want to take what I would view as a lower tier player. Now, if you have somebody that you rank in the same spot as those quarterbacks or higher, go ahead and take them. If you fall in love with one of these running backs, if you fall in love with one of these receivers, or maybe even you think one of these guys is the next Brock Bowers, like, go ahead and take him at 103. If not, I think the perfect opportunity to trade out. There will be teams that need quarterback. You'll be able to get you could trade out from that spot. I mentioned a couple names before, like a T. Higgins, I think would be a good target for the 103. So that's probably what I would do there. Oh, man, the questions are flowing. I don't even know if we'll get to the prospect talk. All right. James, when's a good time to do a slow startup draft? Right now, my guy. Right now. Sooner the better. Because if you're here today on January 9th watching this show, you probably have a leg up on a lot of your competition. Like, you're already paying attention. You're looking at things. So if you can get other guys to do the draft now while you know more of what's going on, more so than them, it's always a good time to do that. Theo, Reed and Flowers or A.J. Brown? This one is going to be a roster construction one for me. One, am I a contending team, like a legit, like top 2, top 3 team in my league? If that's the case, I probably want A.J. Brown, but depth is also a big part of it. So I think it's a even swap. It's, do I need to be younger or contending now? And B, am I looking for starting lineup help, or do I need more depth? Peter, am I wanting to trade for the 101? Maybe. But I'm assuming this is the Nerds Invitational, and I'm probably at the point where I'm going to be looking towards 2026 and 7, because I am probably going to have to go into a rebuild. So maybe, depends on, are you willing to take win now pieces, or are you wanting young pieces? Because if you want young pieces, I am not your Huckleberry. All right. Christopher, what pick in this class in a 1 QB would you be willing to trade away Jonathan Taylor or Breece Hall for? Right away, if I can get the 101, I will take Genty over those guys for sure. Problem is, after that 102, maybe I'd consider, but then by 103, I'm out. Like Ted McMillan, it all depends on how you feel about him. I have not done my deep dive, so I cannot tell you confidently if Tet is worth those guys. So for right now, the only one I can say confidently is I would take Ashton Genty over those guys. Would you rather have Olave or Odunze? Are you worried about the Saint situation and concussion history? Yes, I have Odunze ranked a little bit higher than Olave in my rankings, so I would rather roam Odunze. Christian, what are some good trades for my 105 pick Superflex 10-person dynasty? So if you're looking to trade out, it somewhat depends on what positions you're looking for. I think that's a good opportunity to get yourself a really good tight end if you don't have an elite tight end. Like that's where I'm going to see like how much is Trey McBride going for right now? Can I make a deal there? If not, then okay, let's look at running backs. Could I get Jonathan Taylor with my 105 if I'm ready to contend? These are all like contender type moves. Am I able to get I said 103 for Teagans. If you can get him for 105, even better. But some of those other wide receivers in that type of range, or maybe even a quarterback, you might be able to get a quarterback in that spot. But yeah, I would probably be looking at like a Jonathan Taylor, T. Higgins to help me win this year. Was offered 110 for Jameson Williams. Feel like I am the downswing of a title window. Currently, I have the 109. Yeah, I mean, Jameson Williams, he's a really tough one to start. Like if it's a best ball league, you feel great about him. But in normal leagues, it's a little more risky. So I would rather take the 110. Okay, money, who's valued higher, Bijan or Malik Neighbors? Right now in both of my drafts, Bijan went before Malik Neighbors. Now, these were both mocks. These weren't real drafts, but the two mocks that I've done, Bijan's gone higher in both. Now, part of that's because I was the one that took Bijan. But right now, in a super flex league, the only player that I think is more valuable than Bijan Robinson is Jamar Chase. You could argue Justin Jefferson, and I would be totally fine with it. But Bijan Robinson right now would be above any other wide receivers, any other running backs. Benny, thought on Jalen McMillan's future? Wide receiver one upside when Evans is gone. One might be a little rich, but it's definitely not out of the out of consideration. I think he did enough to show the Buccaneers that they don't need to go out and spend big money to bring Chris Godwin back. And I honestly think McMillan's better while Evans is there because I think he profiles more as a wide receiver two that can put up monster, even borderline wide receiver one numbers as a number two. But if he has to play the one, I don't know if we're going to be getting the same production. So I think his upside is very, very high, though. What are we flipping Tracy for this offseason? I would be looking at a low first. If somebody's willing to give me, like a 110 to 112, like I would be willing to probably move Tracy for that. And then you made great profit then at that point. Dude, I'm with you, Randall. I am so excited for rookie breakdowns. I'm watching tape like a fiend already, my guy. Already watching tape like crazy. All right, Joseph. Connor in the same boat with you as Tracy. He's a 25-year-old rookie who turns 26 in the middle of next year. Feels like you can sell on the rookie hype a bit. I have no problem doing that, especially it looks like Dable's going to be back, so that does help, but we'll see. Do you think Travis Hunter will be the de facto 101 in an IDP league? Probably so, assuming your league does give a single player credit for both sides of the ball. I know fantasy baseball, they were trying to figure that out a couple years ago, and you could only have Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher or a hitter. You couldn't have him as both. And so I think that's what your league's going to have to decide. But assuming they give credit for both, then absolutely. If you have 3 late firsts this year, should I be trying to move up or trade them for 26 picks? Not a contender in that league. Yeah. When you look at the hit rates, basically you either want to be in the top 4 or everything else is kind of about the same. So I'm not necessarily moving up to get me 105, 106. Like either I'm just going to take multiple late firsts and do what I can there, or I'm going to use that to package and move into the top 4. Otherwise, it's just not really worth it. Benny, in a rebuild, 1 QB with my wide receivers Higgins, Waddle, Pickens, and McMillan. QB, Hurts, and Baker. I have the 101, 103, 105, 106, 110, 202, and 203. Should I just go ahead and get all of the running backs or what trades? Honestly, right now, you're in a perfect spot to just go keep getting the best player available. So you're looking at probably Ashton Genty, then Cam Ward. So you got your third quarterback. Then you're probably looking at Quinshad Judkins, Luther Burden, somebody like that with the next couple picks. 110, you're probably looking at or actually, sorry, it's a 1 QB league. So yeah, you don't even need to do that. So yeah, it would be not Cam Ward at 103. It would be your favorite running back probably at 103. So yeah, I would just make a lot of these picks with it being a pretty good class at running back. But if not, like I'm always willing to make a trade. Like just because I plan on doing this, the right trade comes along. All right, let's look at it. Let's discuss it because anybody can be had for the right price. All right. Mitch 22 finished third this year. I have the 101, 104, and 105. Would you be who would you be targeting if I don't have any positional needs? So right now, truly like in any drafts, even if I did have needs, I am always drafting for talent and ability, the best player available. And then I will trade for my needs later because I don't want to lose value in my startup because then if I need to go trade that guy, I'm getting less in that trade. So trade for the need and then drafting for the best player available. So that being said, Genty is easy. You have that there. 04 and 05, you're probably looking at one of the quarterbacks, so Shador, Cam Ward. And then at 105, probably your favorite running back. Like I said, right now for me, it's Quinshon Judkins, but I haven't broken down Travion Henderson's tape yet. I haven't done, there's a few guys that I haven't done that are bigger names. So there could be somebody else there, but that would probably be the case for me. Dane Jacobson, similar type of thing there. Looking at Quinshon, Travion, Luther Burden. You could maybe at 107 even look at the top tight end on the board. I would have no problem with going with Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland right there. So, yeah, absolutely. All right. I'm sure these are probably responses to some of the things earlier. Let's see. Curtis, I saw on the podcast Hampton went 2-2. I was thinking about selecting him in the top 5 in the first round. What am I not seeing? So I have no problem with Omarion Hampton. I will say when I watched his tape, I'm gonna pull up my nerd score stuff here because I have done the minimum 4 games on him. I will be watching more. But I've done the minimum 4 games on him to be able to give a basic score on where I see him. So for what it's worth, I believe I gave him a 73. Let me find it. So yeah, he has a 73.1, which is not a bad score. Typically top 5 caliber, like top 5 overall in your draft caliber running backs are going to get over a 74 for me. So I think that's the rub there is I don't have any issue with Omarion Hampton. Think of more of like a Braylon Allen type guy. That's who you're going to be getting in Omarion Hampton. I think draft capital is going to go a long way to kind of really figure out where all these running backs should go. Jason, I have 106, 110, or sorry, 110, 110, 202, 203, 207 in a 10-team Superflex half PPR. I'm pretty sure across the board, and I'm short on players to drop. What would you be willing to move out of for these picks to move up to 101? If I would give, especially only in a 10-team league, I'd be willing to give up my first 3 picks there, 106, 110, and 202 to move up to 101. If it came down to it, they could have my entire draft there, which I know seems crazy, but I would much rather have the sure thing than a bunch of like finger crossing hopefuls. So I would, if it came down, I'm offering 106, 110, and 202. But if it takes 203 and 207 to get the job done, then so be it. All right, Alberto, 1 QB. I have the 104, and I need running backs. I want to trade down to get more shots at this running back class. Do you know the teardrops yet? Prefer to trade for vet running backs. So right now, it's basically for the general consensus. I won't go for necessarily me. I'll go general consensus. General consensus is tier 1, Ashton Genty, big gap. Tier 2, you have some combination of Caleb Johnson, Quinshad Judkins, Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson. Some will throw Nick Singleton in there. Most won't. So you have about 4 guys in that second tier. So at 104, you're in a pretty good spot to get one of those running backs. For me right now, Quinshon is in a different tier than Caleb Johnson and Omarion Hampton. But it's not like it's crazy, but they are in a different tier. So for what it's worth. With how Henry has been this season, do we think they give him another 1-year contract? I would be surprised if they didn't at this point. I do think they give him another contract. Angus, would you trade the 105 and London for the 101 to 1 QB league? Oof. 105 and London. I feel like that's a little too rich. Would I do it for Bijan or Gibbs? I would. I don't think I can do it quite yet for Ashton Genty. Could he? And look, if you truly believe that he will for sure be in that tier, then it's worth it. I think there's a good chance he ends up in that tier, but I don't think it's, completely a lock. So that would be kind of what, I'm kind of waiting to see. Curtis Martin says Hampton and Johnson, Caleb Johnson for him there with those picks. Christopher, do you think Breece Hall and AJ Brown is too much of an overpay for Jamar Chase? If I could possibly get him to add in Ken Walker or a mid first, does that make it more worth it? Yes, if you can get that extra Ken Walker mid first, honestly, even a late first would probably be okay. But Breece and AJ Brown is maybe just a little bit too much for me. Eli, 102 and Pollard for 104 and Bucky Irving. 10-team, 2-quarterback, PPR. Pollard is my best running back. I'd be willing to move down 2 spots. 2 QB does make it a little trickier. So I guess it would depend on where you're at with your quarterbacks, because chances are you're not getting a quarterback there at 104, but then you're getting Ted McMillan. So as long as you're okay with that, then I would probably do that move. And maybe somebody does love Tet and they're going to take him above either Shador or Cam Ward. So I would make that move. I think that's a good move on your behalf. I traded Jacobs, Pittman, and the 26th second for 101, and I'm pretty juiced about it. I think that's a great move. Great move, Randall. Jose, in Superflex tight end premium, I thought thoughts on Kincaid and Kraft. Or with the 109 and 111, go get one tight end. I have needs at running back and receiver. Jose, as far as Kincaid and Kraft go, I like Kraft quite a bit. I currently have him as my tight end 9, whereas Kincaid is tight end 5, where Kincaid is my tight end 11. So with that, I am fairly high on Kraft. I have no problem with that. But at 109 and 111, go best available. If Loveland or Warren are there, then that's probably the best available player. If not, keep taking who the best available is, because you can always trade for your position of need. Somebody will want one of those young tight ends, especially with after the past couple years, how some of these young guns have done. They'll be willing to trade for a young tight end. I am a Caleb Johnson fan. What are your thoughts? Is 105 or 107 too early? Dane, I have no problem with it. I have nothing against Caleb Johnson. He's got a 73.05 for me personally at the moment, which is a good running back, but not in that 74 or above tier where I feel supremely confident that they will be a legitimate running back in the NFL. So he's kind of, but you want him to be above, anybody that's above a 72 definitely has a shot. So I wouldn't say I am a Caleb Johnson stan at this point, but I am not anti Caleb Johnson either. So 105, 107, if he's your guy, if he's your running back 2 in the class, I think that's a totally fine range to take him. Absolutely, Alberto. Appreciate you, my guy. Thinking about trading Romo Dunze for the 102 to get Tet McMillan. Is it worth the risk? I would have them in a very similar tier. So if you have one guy above the other, I have no issue with it. No issue with it at all. Take who you like more, honestly. Christopher Sims, I was literally just offered the 101 for Bowers 2 seconds ago. It would be Genty, obviously. The answer is still Bowers, though, right? It is. Especially if there's tight end premium involved. There's no tight end premium, then that makes it a little bit closer, and I could see going either way. But if there is a premium at the tight end, I think you absolutely have to stick with Brock Bowers. Jose, I got Hawk for the 109 and a 2-point reception for tight end premium this week. Give it a shot. McCarthy loves the tight end. So, yeah, I think that's a great move, Connor. I would have no issue with that at all. All right, I think I finally caught up on all the questions. So just some general draft thoughts on this class right now. I've talked about it a little bit here, but right now, Ashton Genty is in his own tier. The only nerd score that I have given higher at the running back position, and remember, this goes back to the 2020 draft class. So this is year 6 now, 2020, 2021, 2022, 23, 24, and now this is 25. So this is our 6th class that we'll be ranking. That being said, only one guy, and that's Bijan Robinson, has a higher score for me at this point. But Quinshon Judkins is ranking pretty high right now. He has a top 5 score. Now, will that stay? I need to watch more tape. But right now, he has a top 5 score in the past 5 years. So we will see. Hunter says, deep rebuilder. Wide receivers are Olave, Ayuk, Downs, Pittman, Pearsall, then drops to Wan'Dale Robinson and Watson. Let's see. Do you have another question? Oh, here it is. Okay. Do I try to add another wide receiver or trade back into the first for a guy like Caleb? Once again, I'm taking best available. I'm not prioritizing Caleb as much as other people might be. So if that's the case, I'm probably taking the best receiver, but it's still going to be best player available. So if Caleb Johnson's the best player on my board and he's available, awesome. But I'm not necessarily trading back in to do it. I think your wide receivers are fine, but you're not going to win a league with those wide receivers. I have a super flex roster in rough shape with very little draft capital. Should I tear down from Josh Allen to Herbert and get 103 and a 26 mid to early first. That's tough, but I would probably do that. As much as I love having one elite guy in a rebuild, one elite guy can actually hold you back because you put so much value in them. You're not willing to move them, but you need multiple assets to actually have a chance to win. And so I would have no problem doing that because Herbert's still going to get you points. 103 that gets you a second quarterback. And then in 2026, when hopefully you're kind of moving back up towards the top now, you have another mid to early first. So I would do that. Dane, would you rather have Superflex Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young? That's so funny. I was literally talking to somebody about this the other day. Debating on a tier down from A-Rich to Young and moving up 6 spots in each of the second and third round. If you can get the extra, so it sounds like you can move up in the second round and the third round to do it. I think since you're getting the extra, I'd be willing to do it because I have them very close. I would have Anthony Richardson ahead, but that's enough of an extra for me to do it. Jose says in 1 QB, 0.5 PPR league, would you sell Ferguson for a mid second? My other tight end is Kraft, and I can get Warren or Loveland in the draft. Yep. No problem doing that then. Let's see. Wesley, is it worth a late first to tier up from Laporta to McBride in a non-tight end premium? I would probably not. With there being no premium on it, I would rather just sit pat. We saw Laporta have a big year 2 years ago. This year was a disappointment, but you look at a second half of the year, he wasn't far off from a Trey McBride. And I don't see things changing much for what we got out of McBride this year or Laporta this year. If anything, eventually we'll be losing Jameson Williams. But if Marvin Harrison Jr. improves, then all of a sudden that could be a small detriment. McBride's still going to do great, but could be a small detriment to him there. So for what it's worth. All right. Brian Thomas Jr. and 205 for 104 and 106. Ooh. I would probably take Brian Thomas Jr. unless it's super flex and I could use that QB. Yeah. 2 QB league, take 101 or Genty. Take QB at 101 or Ashton Genty. I think you still go Ashton Genty, even in a 2 QB league. Because in super flex leagues, which are not far off from 2 QB leagues, it's still Ashton Genty by a good margin over Shador and Cam Ward. And so I would need a lot for somebody to convince me to move down to 102, 103, like a whole other first round pick, and maybe even more depending on how far I'm moving down. Dane, absolutely, my guy. Appreciate you. It's fun to be in here, get to hang out with you guys and talk the upcoming draft. Let's see. Eric, I need running backs for my 12-team start 10 super flex tight end premium. There's also a 0.2 per carry for next season. What would you start looking for in vets that can produce? Sitting on 5 2025 seconds and 5 2025 thirds plus the 102. Yeah, so I'm looking at if you're looking at vets that could still produce, you're looking at Derrick Henry, you're looking at Joe Mixon. Like if you can use a second to get either one of those guys, I'm totally fine with it. People might put Josh Jacobs into that category now. You might put Jonathan Taylor into that category now. I'd be fine taking either one of those guys. I would give multiple seconds specifically for Jonathan Taylor. I'd give like 3 or 4 seconds for Jonathan Taylor. So, yeah, those would be the kind of guys I'd be looking to get. For a third, maybe James Conner. Thoughts on Trey Benson's future? Invested a first last year in a 1 QB, hoping that he would be the RB1. I'm with you. I'm a Trey Benson guy. I do like him quite a bit. Look, he's going to be more involved next year, but they re-signed Connor for a reason, so it's still going to be annoying. But this was one of the healthiest years ever for James Conner, and he still missed a couple games. So there's still hope. There's still hope. 1 QB, Pollard at 204. Probably Pollard still. 204 is just such a shot in the dark. Unless you're in rebuild, then I'm fine doing it. All right, last two questions here. Dane, Superflex QB room looks like Jordan Love. I'm a Packer fan. A. Rich and May. Am I a little crazy that I want to take a shot on Milrow, assuming he's going around the early second? No problem doing that. No problem doing that. I don't know that I can take him in the first round unless he's a first round pick. But his upside's crazy, so totally worth it. Connor, I absolutely could do a video on that. Yeah, let me see what I can do to help you out there, my guy. Matt, would you take Warren at 102 in a 2-point per tight end premium over McMillan? Receivers are Rome, Brian Thomas Jr., Waddle, McMillan, and Olave. Matt, I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. I have not watched enough tape on Warren yet to say confidently. But if you think he's anywhere near Brock Bowers or even in the Sam Laporta range, it's probably worth it in a 2-point per tight end premium. So, guys, appreciate you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me here on the Dynasty Lunch Break. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.